Everything begins in a hospital where a mother has her son admitted because he won't stop vomiting and has a headache. The doctor tells the lady to rest a bit because they will soon have the results. Later, the doctors, in private, discuss that the boy has many symptoms: headache, vomiting, dizziness, fatigue, and pain in his limbs. They wonder if it could be lupus. Suddenly, the results arrive, but in the end, they find nothing wrong with the boy. Later, they are attending to a man with severe stomach pain. They ask him if he has eaten anything unusual lately, but he says no. Meanwhile, we see the protagonist of this story leaving her desk. According to the results, the man might have gastroenteritis, although it could also be appendicitis. Therefore, they decide not to take action until the doctor arrives. Suddenly, the doctor, named Takao, arrives. The girl introduces herself to the doctor, and the doctor tells her that the hospital belongs to her grandfather. The girl's name is May. The boy asks the doctor for help because he doesn't know the diagnosis of the two patients he admitted. She reviews the diagnoses and then goes to see the sick boy. After examining him, she determines that the boy has hypervitaminosis. The doctor explains to the boy's mother that vitamin A is fat-soluble, so it accumulates in the body if taken in excess. In the end, it is discovered that the boy has vision problems, and the mother started giving him vitamin A through meals. Since the boy wasn't improving, she kept giving him more and more. The doctor scolds the mother and yells at the boy to send the child to a pediatrician. Meanwhile, she begins examining the man. He is suffering greatly from stomach pain. The doctor notices a cane and asks the other doctors if it belongs to the man. They confirm it does. She then asks the man if he ate raw fish today, and he says yes. So, the doctor states that the man has anisakis, a parasite. She orders the boy to call gastroenterology. The doctor deduces that the man is a fisherman who spends a lot of time sitting since he uses a cane and probably got hungry and ate raw fish. Later, the firefighters call the emergency room. The boy answers the phone and is informed they are bringing a young man whose leg has just been mutilated. The boy orders everyone under him to start preparing. Suddenly, the young man arrives, and everyone is shocked by the state of his leg. Unfortunately, the young man dies. However, the most shocking part is that the liquid running through his veins is blue. The doctor comments that this is one of the most interesting cases she has ever seen. Later, however, a detective and the police take the body and tell the doctor not to interfere. Afterward, they go up to the upper floor of the hospital where the doctor has her private office, which is quite impressive. The doctor then starts searching the city news to see if she can find out what tore off the young man's leg. Suddenly, her uncle, one of the hospital's directors, calls her. When she goes to see him, he tells her not to get involved in the deceased young man's case, since he doesn't want any trouble with the law. But she insists she has a duty to discover what happened to the patient. Her uncle reminds her that she is a doctor, not a detective. Filled with anger, she kicks the clinic's wall and tells her student that he will have the day off tomorrow because she plans to investigate on her own. However, the next day, she makes him her driver, clearly the reason she gave him the day off. When they arrive at the crime scene, it is crowded with police and detectives. She parks the car and goes to speak with a man named Sakurai, standing next to the detective who had previously warned her not to interfere in the case. She tells him she knows he is also there to investigate the blue Venus liquid. The man denies knowing what she's talking about, but she says that just seeing him there already reveals a lot, since they both only investigate homicides. The man tells her he can't give her any information unless she gives him some first. So the doctor takes them to a park. In that park, there is a museum set to open the next day. The doctor reveals that the young man's body was found at a construction site behind the museum. As they approach the museum, the doctor claims that the wound was caused by a carnivorous animal, and according to her, the one responsible for the young man's leg loss was a Tyrannosaurus rex. The man tells them that everything indeed points to the Tyrannosaurus ripping the victim's leg off, and that is the secret information he has. He also reveals that the young man who died had been in prison for 3 years for homicide. Later, he joined a gang, and the construction supervisor was the one who found his body. However, instead of calling emergency services, the supervisor called a doctor who lived nearby, which is insane because he should have contacted emergency services. Now, the construction supervisor is a suspect. The doctor decides to visit the nearby physician, and when they arrive at his house, she rings the doorbell and greets him. She asks why he didn't take the dying man to his clinic. He explains that it was a holiday, and he didn't have any nurses available to assist him. The doctor then tells her student that it's time to leave and instructs the detective that the forensic team must investigate the museum first thing in the morning since the culprit likely left evidence there. Later, the doctor takes the detectives to a forest and reveals that there is a bigger case behind all this. Her student recalls seeing some men who looked like Yakuza at the crime scene. However, the doctor clarifies that those men were actually detectives. The detectives and the police are keeping this from the media to avoid triggering a gang war. The detective confirms this, explaining that the young man attacked a gang leader and fled the scene while wounded. They continue walking, and the doctor says they will go to the museum, as there is something she wants to investigate personally. Upon reaching the rear of the museum, she notices the door has been forced open and finds traces of the blue liquid that had been running through the victim's veins. She concludes that the victim was brought to this location. The traces lead them to a storage room, which appears to be the actual crime scene. Suddenly, the doctor who lived near the museum arrives, and everyone is already waiting for him. The doctor declares that this man is the culprit, explaining that the delinquent had come to his clinic for treatment because he is a black market doctor who wouldn't report him to the police. She accuses him of working exclusively for gangsters. She further explains that the blue liquid in the young man's body was caused by anoxia, a total absence or extreme reduction of oxygen supply to body tissues due to the local anesthesia the doctor administered, which triggered a medical crisis. To save the delinquent, the doctor entered the museum searching for a cure to the condition, methylene blue. This medication was in the museum because it is also used for fish treatment. However, by the time he returned with the methylene blue, the young man had already died. Fearing involvement in the case, the doctor used the Tyrannosaurus skull to amputate the patient's leg and then abandoned the body at the construction site. The female doctor boldly states that it could have been the perfect crime if it hadn't been for the fact the body was taken to a hospital where a genius like her works. Declaring the case solved, she prepares to leave, but as she turns away, the man says the classic Scooby-Doo villain line.
And it would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
Suddenly, he lunges to attack her, but her student intervenes, using his knowledge of taijutsu to defend her. Later, at the doctor's home, her sister is seen waiting for her. She then takes her sister aside to talk privately.